It's my life. Lazy. It's my life. I got dirty. It's my life.
And welcome back to Collect Them All or Die Trying, the spoiler rooms, comic cliff notes. And hello students, this is your principal speaking, welcoming you back to school safe and sound and slasher free. And don't forget to check out the links in the description to Coffee and a Comic to get your hands on the Maniac of New York or any other comic you might see on this channel. So head on over and spoil yourself. And stay tuned for the following important PSA. And remember, stay safe the slasher way.
Good morning, students of Typhoon Middle. For today's PSA, I'm here to tell you about the official New York City Maniac Safety Guidelines. We work to complete the following objectives: educating students and staff in the slasher safety method, give students and staff the tools they need to possibly survive a maniac attack, keep student and staff casualty numbers at acceptable minimums, and reduce preparedness-related complaints from community parents. The slasher method is most used in schools, and it stands for stay in place, lock all doors, await help in silence, hear the all clear, evacuate and resuscitate any surviving wounded. Staff, please ensure to complete the Smarts Court Maniac drill training and hire our trained professionals. Pick up your inappropriate versus appropriate language charts to communicate with student and parents. It may be in your front office. Let's all stay safe the slasher way.
Welcome back to the Maniac of New York, The Bronx is Burning, Back to School Part 1. Now, this series takes place after Harry, the serial killer, has ran rampant through the streets of Manhattan in New York City. And now Harry plans to expand his murder, massacre, and mayhem and kill count to a whole new borough of the Bronx. And here we are in a liquor store in the Bronx, owned by Ernie Ellison, who wishes nothing more but to close his doors 5 minutes early and go home, and really wishes he had. But there's always that one guy, that last guy at the end of the night that can't make up his fucking mind on which bottle will get him drunk faster than Captain America checking someone on their language etiquette. And if Elliot would have closed up shop 5 minutes early, he wouldn't have gotten robbed at gunpoint by a maniac Harry imposter who's demanding Elliot to give up his money in his register while the last customer records the robbery taking place while hiding in the back. And Zelda, one of the detectives now at the scene, is very irate and agitated, not only with the customer's reaction of just pulling out his phone, but also being dragged to the Bronx at crack of dawn for nothing. And she makes it very vocal, which upsets Elliot because he's got robbed by the maniac. An imposter maniac. As Zelda is well aware of this because since when does the maniac talk and carry a gun or even give a shit about money? And Elliot just wants the detectives to write down in the report that it was the maniac to help out with the insurance claim. Yes, businesses and institutions can claim maniac slasher on their insurance because that's how bad Maniac Harry has become. Such a problem and a liability in this world. The next comment Elliot makes pisses Zelda off because he asks how could Zelda be that certain that it wasn't the maniac. And she grabs Elliot by the collar and states how she personally saw the maniac impale someone and kill a woman by tearing her apart until the blood exploded. Yeah, that's a little too much details, but you get the point. And that was a hero, not some coward hiding in the corner recording everything from a phone. And this dude continues to record with his phone while Zelda's hemming up Elliot in the back of the store. And Gina, she convinces Zelda to calm down because regardless, they're gonna take all alleged sightings of the maniac seriously as she buys a case of liquor to put in the trunk of the cowardice filmmaker's car. And this is a total bad cop vibes, as Zelda points out that she's committing entrapment by placing booze in an alcoholic's car. Gina, she just wants to be ready because sooner or later, one of these maniac calls will be the real one. And when it is, she wants to be ready to kill Maniac Harry once and for all. And Zelda, she more than understands because she was there on the death train with Gina back in Maniac of New York, issues 1 and 2. But she feels like chasing all these half-ass sightings is keeping them from doing the real work. But Gina feels different, and she wants to turn over every stone, open every window, and knock on every door. Zelda is convinced that the Bronx is the worst of all 5 boroughs and already in turmoil. And most New Yorkers forget about the Bronx unless they go into a Yankee game. And that the Maniac, he's never coming to the Bronx. And as a New York Bronx veteran, I could agree and attest. There's too many psychos and Maniac in the Bronx. Too much for competition for a serial killer, if you ask me. Then we jump to a school in the Bronx where a teacher and a principal are having a conversation about scrapping a learning unit because it doesn't conform to their national standards, especially now that it's a Smart Corp school. And for those that may not know, Smart Corp is a New York City-based corporation that has gone national, and it has replaced or coincides and works close with the Board of Education and is in charge of the New York City Maniac Safety Guidelines, which enforces a nationwide safety method, training, survival, and security in case of a slasher incident. And Manhattan has gotten so bad that parents have pulled their kids from school to place them in schools in other boroughs because the commute and trains have become far too dangerous to travel. And right here, Raphael is one of those students. And as Raphael is walking to school, we find out that Harry the Maniac, not only is he the biggest and baddest dude in New York and the #1 killer, but he's on top of the Billboard charts with his very own hit single hip-hop song that Raphael just can't seem to get enough of. And Raphael, he's a good, smart kid, and he should love school. But school's doing its best to make sure that he doesn't, because he gets bullied. And his parents' advice is, if you ignore these bullies, they'll eventually leave you alone. And boy, that's the worst advice you could give any kid on bullies. Ignoring a bully ain't gonna work. In fact, it's only gonna make matters worse. If you don't like confrontation or conflict, then your best bet is to suck it up, because it's the only way to get a bully to stop bothering you, or at least get you some respect. And half of the time, bullies don't like conflict themselves. They just doing what they do because you allow them to do it. So do yourself a favor. The next time you get bullied, stick your foot so far up his ass, your knee squinches thirst. As school bell rings and students literally jog to class, Ralph is stuck in the bathroom, worried about being late after the bullies have thrown some food on his shirt. And parents, they shouldn't be worried about the commute or the schools in the Bronx anymore, because it looks like Maniac Harry is already paying the Bronx a visit. Then there's a transition back to Gina and Zelda, who are grabbing some coffee and are harassed by the store's owner, who doesn't take a liking to Gina coming into the store and buying coffee because she feels Gina's responsible for the deaths of multiple people on the Maniac train massacre back in issues 1 and 2 of Maniac of New York. And the store owner, she makes it real clear that if she knew it was Gina that asked for the coffee, she would have spit in it. As this confrontation takes place, Zelda gets a call from Gardner Birnbaum. Now, for a quick backstory on Gardner Birnbaum, he is the writer and author of a book called The Bloody New Year, The Maniac, The Massacre, and the Murder of a City, which back in Maniac of New York issue 1, there was a book review that we covered briefly. Now, Birnbaum's book is about the Maniac and the killings, and to Birnbaum, murder is all entertainment to him and a means of having something to write about. He also omits a few facts in his book, which in turn could have saved lives and helped people. But even though he could have been helping citizens, he only cared about himself and his money. Zelda, she brushes this asshole off, but nonetheless, he wants to buy Zelda's story for his new book, The Hero Cop of the Death Train, and the tragic story of Gina Green, who took the fall for the mayor. And Zelda doesn't want to piss the city off more than they already have, especially when they're making progress. And Gardner tells Zelda not to fool herself, because the Maniac will be around far long after they're gone, and why not capitalize on it by doing something for herself, and he wants her to think it over. To save Gina from the verbal attack from the store owner, Zelda calls for a false code 18, and before Gina can excuse herself, the store owner says, "What's the point? You're gonna leave more people to die?" and proceeds to call her a murdering monster. This is more context on how the train incident left Gina branded and labeled as an incompetent cop and a murderer. For more information on this, you can go and check out my spoiler room for the Maniac of New York issue 1. Now back at the school, Harry the Maniac is dropping in to conduct a live slasher drill. And I can't help but to notice, but there was no metal detectors. Like, man, I went to high school in the Bronx and we had to go through not one, but 2 metal detectors. And I'm just saying, if at least there was a metal detector, then maybe this security guard wouldn't have got caught with his guard down, lighting a cigarette, indoors for that matter. And the security guard fumbles to reach for his gun at his ankles. Like, why was your gun at your ankles, bruh? Why wasn't you packing heat at the waist? This security guard needs a pay cut. And that's exactly what Harry gives him, because he goes completely Alice in Wonderland and it's off with his head. And as Harry walks past the front office with a bloody machete in hand, the receptionist screams out for Principal Barkley and informs him that the maniac just entered school grounds and proceeds to follow protocol as he sounds the alarm and calls the home office first before police, because that's what he was told to do. Now, as the alarm sounds, the students are annoyed with another maniac drill as the teacher walks to the door, locks it, and tells the students that they know the procedure and to get under the tables until the all clear. One of the students is frozen in fear where she stands as the teacher tells her to move her ass as Harry peers through the window of the door that the teacher just locked. Then we jump back to Principal Barkley, who's on the phone with Smart Corp and gets an automated message because the offices are closed. And while he's busy making a panic message, people are about to get hacked and dissected in science class. And the teacher is desperately trying to advise the students to get under the tables instead of recording with their phones. Hashtagging. Yeah, hashtagging maniac. You know what you should be hashtagging is hashtag I'm about to die. Hashtag we're all dead. Hashtag nobody gets my comics, not even in death. Yo, why these kids think that a glass window will stop Harry is beyond me, because Harry's machete comes crashing through the window, through the back of the neck, Jason Voorhees style. Meanwhile, the principal is still on the phone trying to get Smart Corp. Like, dude, what part of clothes don't you understand? And you should have been called the cops. I'm stressed just reading this comic, man. And I'm truly happy they cut away from the classroom and the massacre that's about to take place at Bright Future Academy, which ain't looking too bright right now. Then we take a much needed break from Bright Future Academy and the mass murder that's about to take place, and we transition to a train station on 81st Street, Museum of Natural History, and we have Lena Petrella waiting for the train, and whose grandmother thinks she's at school right now, but she's desperately trying to get a hold of Gina Green, because Lena, she remembers all too well what transpired on the death train and has figured out Maniac Harry's weakness and knows how to stop this twisted, murdering psycho. And she needs to tell Gina Green, no matter what it takes. To be continued. And here we have another newspaper clip by the Post, basically questioning Gina Green's competence. Just mere days on the job and the Maniac Task Force director fails to bring Maniac Harry to justice and somehow created a larger body count than Timothy McVeigh. And then the article just goes on to belittle Green, calling her incompetent, heartless, and her shameful irresponsibility and utter ignorance has cost lives. And with media like this, now you know why New Yorkers despise her and want to spit in her coffee. Alright guys, I'm totally loving this series by Elliot Kalan and Andrea Muddy, and I hope I said those names right. But nonetheless, this series reminds me so much of all those classic horror slasher movies that I watched growing up, like Friday the 13th, Halloween, The Hitcher, and Nightmare on Elm Street. And guys, tell me in the comments how you feel about today's generation and how social media has a big effect on today's society, because you see a lot of this in this issue on how common it is for people to just pick up a phone and document something violent with no regards to the safety of others or themselves. I see this in a real problem in our world today. And tell me how you feel and tell me your opinion. And if you like this series, give me a thumbs up and hit that like button. And if you like the content I'm bringing, subscribe so I could bring you more content just like this. And I'll see you in the comments. Peace.
It's my life.